with you.
And also with you.
And this is a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
When Jesus heard of the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself. The crowds heard of this and followed him on foot from their towns. When he disembarked and saw the vast crowd, his heart was moved with pity for them, and he cured their sick. When it was evening, the disciples approached him and said, "This is a deserted place, and it is already late. Dismiss the crowds so that they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "There is no need for them to go away. Give them some food yourselves." But they said to him, 5 loaves and 2 fish are all that we have here." Then he said, "Bring them here to me." And he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass.
Break.
Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he said the blessing, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who in turn gave them to the crowds. They all ate and were satisfied, and they picked up the fragments left over, 12 wicker baskets full. Those who ate were about 5,000 men, not counting women and children. This is the good news of our salvation.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
When Jesus heard about the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew to a deserted place by himself. We have to remember that John the Baptist was kin to Jesus, was a cousin. He probably had a lot of contact with John growing up. If the scriptures be right, that every year his mother and father, Jesus, would come from Nazareth and go down to the city of Jerusalem. John and his parents lived in Ein Kerem, which is about 2 miles outside of the old city. And they probably stayed with this family in Ein Kerem, with Elizabeth and Zechariah, as families would normally do when they would come together, and together going into the city to celebrate the Passover. And so it is easy for us to assume that Jesus and John knew each other fairly well. John has been beheaded. His cousin has been killed. And so Jesus goes into the wilderness to grieve the loss of his kinsman and possibly a friend. And as we hear this story, Jesus withdrew in a boat, goes across the Sea of Galilee to a deserted place. Crowds find out where he has gone and go to him. And his heart is moved with pity. He puts aside his own personal grief, his own need for isolation to deal with the death of John the Baptist, so that he may attend to the needs of this vast crowd. Now, I don't know how they picked the number 5,000, but we here have a hard time counting the number of people so that we have the right number of communion. Can you imagine trying to count 5,000, not counting the women and the children? We see this story and stories like this in all of the 4 gospel renditions. We see Jesus being able to multiply the loaves and the fish. And this is the symbol that we have here. 2 fish and 5 loaves comes from this story. But this morning, my brothers and sisters, I would like to present to you another possibility. Another way of looking at this story, which is more of a miracle than the multiplication of a couple of fish and a couple of loaves of bread. What mother do you know who is going to go on a journey, whether that be to a friend's house or out shopping or wherever it might be, and has an infant or a young child, does not pack what is commonly known as a diaper bag? And in this bag are assorted things that we need to take care of this child. Obviously, there's extra diapers. There may be some toys. There may be something for the child to drink. There may be a blanket, whatever. But the mother makes sure that this diaper bag, this container, has everything she needs to take care of this child wherever they may go. And if you ever see a child and the parents coming into a church with a diaper bag, it's more like a steamer trunk. All right? And they have more than enough in there to take care of the needs of that child or the children throughout the whole service and probably for the rest of the afternoon. Given that, I would like to present to you the possibility that these individuals who were not counted, the women and the children, were responsible, because just as women today make sure that when they're on a journey, wherever that's going to be, they're going to carry the things they need for their children, so the women in those days did the same thing. We are going into the wilderness. We are going into a place that has no stores, no 7-Elevens, no Piggly Wigglies, nothing like that. And so what are we going to do? Are we going to go empty-handed? I have children. I can't go empty-handed. So I begin to prepare a basket. Something that I can carry food in for my family. Change of clothes for my babies. Water so that we can have something to drink. And whatever it is that I need to take care of my family while we are out in this wilderness listening to this itinerant preacher. It may be so that the disciples only had a couple of fish and 5 loaves of bread. But it's the individuals who are now counted. The individuals who sat on the outside of the circle of 5,000 men that I would state to you today are the ones that performed the miracle. And the miracle is not the multiplication. The miracle was that these individuals were enticed. They were dared to share what they had with others. They looked upon their own personal needs to those of other people. And because of that, because they were willing to share their food and their drink, everyone was fed. And I would dare say to you this morning, my brothers and sisters, that is the greater miracle. Because it is a miracle of changing the human heart to share and to be community. To look beyond my own personal needs to the needs of my brothers and sisters. We often see Jesus working miracles, but Jesus is not a magician. It is not done with smoke and mirrors. It is not done because he had a caterer waiting behind the rock to fulfill the needs of everybody. It was that miracle of conversion of heart that he was able to get these individuals to form community. And we have to remember that whatever we do here, we do, even our sacraments are lacking until community comes together. Until we are dared, we are challenged to become community. Overlooking our own personal needs, our selfishness, to the needs of those who sit on either side, the front, or the back of us. And that's the miracle that we celebrate today. Where did the baskets come from? Those empty baskets. They were once filled with food. They were once passed around, these 5,000 individuals, not counting the men, the women, and the children. And there was enough food so that 12 baskets could be filled with leftovers. That's what it means to share. That's the miracle that we listen to today. And the challenge is, my brothers and sisters, the challenge is that we are challenged to become community. Not just here in our little church at St.Francis and Clare, but in the larger community outside. We have to dare people to look beyond their selfishness. We have to challenge people to look upon their own needs to the needs of brothers and sisters. And if we are able to share our goods with other people, if we are able to give half of what we have to another person so they can have enough to live, we too can pick up the leftovers and multiply that 12 by hundreds. Not so that we have enough to throw away, but out of that surplus we can also again share. And so the challenge is not to marvel at the ability of Jesus, as one of those shows on the cooking channel calls Dinner Impossible, where that individual has to cook for 1,200 starving Armenians or whatever he's got to do with 2 loaves and 5 loaves and 2 fish. But rather, that we understand that the miracle is in community. For it is in community that we're all satisfied. It is in community that we're all taken care of. Because I know my brothers and sisters care about me, and I care about them. And it will be the miracle of community that will make up what is lacking in our sacraments. It is the miracle of community that will make up what is lacking in our lives. And we too then will be able to listen and understand and receive the good things of the Lord. Amen.